All right, take two for us, hey babes. Women who birth you will not stop us.
They can try.
You can try, but you won't win. So, Lucy, thank you for creating more space for me. We tried to record this earlier this week live on Instagram, but you'd be a bad girl. You'd be a bad girl on the gram, eh?
What can I say? What can I say? I'm making ripples.
It was quite, I was telling a friend actually after, I was like, it was quite phenomenal to experience what you experience when all you are doing is speaking your truth and using your voice.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it. I was talking to a friend. I was like, just think about brands that use social media and how commercial they are and how much money they gain, and how, if you think about, you know, brand like clothing brands that don't pay their workers properly, like all of the corruption that happens with brands, yet they communicate their messages, their imagery, their videos out to us and we consume it.
Yeah. Bingo.
And you, my friend, my little pocket rocket, with, like you say, you know, like it's not like you've got hundreds of thousands of millions of people, like, you know, and you're being shut down. It's just curious. And I think this is herein lies what we need to always do, right? Questions, curiosity, questions.
I think curiosity is a really good word for it, actually. I think it's such a good word. Why would they be shutting some random chick from Bournemouth, UK, down because she's sharing an opinion that is her own? So what are you saying? We're not allowed to have opinions? And if we're not allowed to have opinions, since when did that change?
Yeah.
Because I thought we were living in, you know, the world of the free. We could have freedom of speech, and we could have freedom of movement, and we could have freedom of, you know, body autonomy. But here we are, and we've got to question. We've got to question why that would be happening right now.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so we've got so much to talk about. And I was like, okay, our conversation that started so juicily. It was so great.
Oh my God, it was amazing. Oh my gosh, I really want to hear the rest of it. And I'm like, guys, I'm so sorry. But my followers luckily are used to it by now, but it's infuriating for people.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's infuriating for me, because now I've just got used to it and I'm like, fine, okay, you know, I'll just close it down. But what my followers want me to do is just jump straight back on and do another video. But as you know, when you do an Instagram live, you've got to hashtag it, you've got to title it, you've got to do all of this description afterwards and stuff, and it needs to, you know, be a certain way before you can just post it. So it's not just like, I can hit the post button and it's done. You know, and my followers are like, come on, come back online. But it's heavy going.
Yeah, it's heavy going. It is. But we won't give that any more airtime, because that was done and that was juicy, and it's actually, I was going to take it down, but it's still up at the beginning of our conversation from Tuesday.
I don't even remember what we spoke about, I'll be honest.
No, it just goes out of you. Yeah. So, well, thank you so much for being on here. Appreciate you.
Back after my trauma.
No. Oh, I'm here for it, babes. I'm here for it. And so, you know that this is Women Who Birth, and this is all about birthing things other than, well, including humans, but not just that. And I know that you have birthed so much goodness and out in the world already. And I just want to kind of like give everyone an opportunity to learn a little bit more about you. And there is a podcast that talks about your healing journey, which you and I did together, I think it was April last year, where it's like your full story. So, nutshell, go.
So, obviously my name's Lucy. I'm from Bournemouth, in the UK. Although normally outside of this COVID world, I travel the world with what I do for a living these days. Back in the day, I used to work on the trading floor as a project manager in their technology team. And I was pretty badass at it, to be honest with you, like super organized. You know, I was extremely, you know, in that energy of getting it done. I want to earn more money. I want to, you know, that greed and that materialistic nature that comes along with a big salary and big responsibilities in your career. So, you know, I was doing really, really well at that. And then 2014, as I suggested in the podcast, my health just disintegrated, and it had been happening over many, many, many years, but all of a sudden, boom, it was gone, and I burnt out. So I did what all normal human beings would do. I quit my job and I hopped on a plane and I left. And I traveled the world and, you know, started getting connected back to my truth, you know, how the physical body should feel and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't really grasp any of it then. And it was really when I got back in 2015 that I started to birth, you know, everything that we now know to be Lucy Davis today. So initially it was being a nutritionist. So I qualified and I started practicing. And then all of a sudden these gifts starting downloading on me. And all of a sudden I'm now, you know, a pretty well-known spiritual mentor to thousands of people around the world. And sometimes I'm like, how on earth did this even happen? But I just trust that it's divine timing, it's divine alignment, and I'm exactly on the path that I'm meant to be. So long story short, was very sick, was very greedy, was very materialistic. And now I'm a complete free spirit. I'm completely healed, even from tumors. I want to give people hope out there, even from tumors. And I'm just this person that, you know, is an open vessel between myself and the divine, and you know, life is pretty beautiful.
So gorgeous. So gifts, being gifted. This is something that, you know, some teachers will say, like, we all have it in us, right? It's just whether we choose to tap back in or to use what's already there. But when you think about gifts and what you had when you were younger, were they apparent? What did it look like for you? And if they were apparent, like, when did that cut off? And then how did you kind of start to build that back up again?
Beautiful. So now looking back, I was very gifted as a child, very gifted. I had invisible friends. If your child has an invisible friend, they can see spirit. So let's just ground that into ourselves and normalize that. If your child is having a conversation with somebody that you cannot see, it's probably because they, you know, they literally can see into the spirit realm. And that's beautiful. It's amazing. Okay. So I had invisible friends and I was extremely popular. I was extremely intuitive. You know, I'd come out with things and my mum would be like, how do you know that? But I just kind of knew information that I just shouldn't know. You know, like when I was very young, I used to come out with the things about history, and I hadn't even been to school. So my mum and dad would be like, well, that's just weird. But I was just channeling information, obviously what I now call channeling.
Yeah.
Some people call it download, some people call it whatever they call it. But that's, you know, that's what I'm referring to when I'm channeling. I just literally get this rush of information that comes through me. And it resonates. Now I look back at when I was little. Oh, that was interesting. Clearly I used to have the gift. But then I got to about 10, 11 years of age and had to go through the 11 plus. And I know we spoke about this on Instagram the other day. I'm just going to explain it again for anyone who didn't see it.
Yeah, do.
The 11 plus in the south of England is an exam to get you from like your junior school into a grammar school. So it's kind of an exam that we have to do. And it was at that moment that I raised my standards, if you like, from a human perspective. And I relinquished all of these beautiful gifts and this stuff that came so naturally to me because it wasn't being nurtured. So I went, oh gosh, I need to get rid of that now. And I need to step into here and I need to use my human brain more, because if my cousin can get into a grammar school, hey, you watch me, I'll be getting into a grammar school. But that competition started, you know, and that comparison started, and all of the indoctrination over the first 10, 11 years, which we all go through, really started to kick in. And it was like, she can do it, I can do it too, watch me. So I let go of it all. Literally overnight, I didn't become serious. You know, I was still a bit of a joker, and I still, you know, I was very, very popular through school. I was very lucky, to be honest. I never got bullied or anything like that. But I just wasn't the Lucy that everybody knew as a child. And then obviously as I got older, it became less and less and less. Like when I started working for the investment banks at about 23, 24, oh my gosh, literally life and fun stopped. Although I was going out getting drunk all of the time, because that's what we believed to be fun at that age, you know, I look back and it was so sad. It was so sad. You know, my health issues had literally started the moment I went into banking. Now I look back, I had my first operation on my womb when I was literally at the start of my investment banking career. Coincidence? I don't think so.
Yeah, insane, eh?
Getting my attention to get me out of that environment. I should never have been in that environment. But
how long were you in that environment for?
Well, I think I can't remember if I started at 23. I think I probably started at about 23 because I came out of uni at what, 21?
21, yeah.
Probably I was in there from 22.
Yeah.
And then I left at 35. So what's that, 13 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of time.
And so that's a long time.
I worked in for insurance companies, and I left at 35 for 14 months, then I went back for 2 years. So actually it's 15 years that I did in that environment. Yeah. But before that I worked at Liverpool Victoria Insurance. It was actually Frizzell's before that, but I'm really showing my age now. And I worked for a life insurance company. I think things like that, you know, as you do in between your studies and whatever, you just go and earn a bit of cash, don't you? So I've been in that environment for some time. But I joined Chase Manhattan Bank, as it was back then, when I was 22. And then I burnt out at 35, took 14 months off, and then I went back for another 2 years. So in total it's 15 years.
Yeah, crazy, right? And now the thought of it, you're like, oh
yeah. And I'm going to say something totally inappropriate. You would actually probably do less for murder.
Yeah,
totally inappropriate, but it's so true. And it's scary when you look at it like that, right? Yeah. Because
so crazy. So when you decide, you know, when it was push came to shove and you're physically and metaphorically pushed into a position of needing to just came in my head, fix up, look sharp, literally go for it and start fix up, look sharp and heal one's vessel, and then also start opening up to and reconnecting and reclaiming those gifts that you already have. In doing that, did you see that your ability to create in the world and the ability to birth was shown to you, it kind of became apparent in your life?
Yeah, but it wasn't you're going to be a spiritual mentor to thousands of people around the world, you're going to be involved in the mass awakening. It was first and foremost, it was, you need to heal your body.
Yeah.
And I was shown very, very gently and very beautifully that, you know, going plant-based would be the best thing for me. That doesn't mean it's best for everybody, but it's best for me. You know, changing my water would be a good thing for me. Needing to be in more sunshine. I was literally shown step by step by step. And then I was like, okay, I'm starting to feel better. I want to help others feel better. And of course, what do we do? Because we're indoctrinated. Oh, well, I must do a degree. If I want to be taken seriously as a nutritionist, I got to do a degree. And so I went down the path of doing a nutrition degree, and then I practiced for a very short period of time before I said, hang on a minute, I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the teachings that I've learned in this process. So I was like, okay. And I had qualified as a health coach alongside it, which was much more holistic, completely in alignment with my values. And so as much as I had my nutrition information that I could pull in when I needed to, I went much more down the health coach route. And then from that, all of a sudden, I'm getting all these intuitive downloads. So I'm like, okay, I'll intuitively do health coaching. You know, it won't be follow the process
you'll be guided by.
Yeah, and I started intuitively doing it. And then it was I was getting people coming to me that had stage 4 colon cancer. And all of a sudden, it's not about the food, although part of it is. It wasn't about the food. It was okay, I'm channeling their emotions that have created this disease in their body. And I'm like, gosh knows where this is coming from. Like literally, I have no freaking clue where it's coming from, but I was trusting it, and I was getting really phenomenal results. Really,
how was that for your clients on the receiving end who, you know, had come to you, interestingly, because I would imagine more so because of the health coaching and nutrition side of things, but what they walked away with was, or what they came out of a session with was, I've just had this like emotional, energetic, like reading almost, and this kind of like these downloads are coming through. Were there kind of like experiences that you had of people just being like, fuck, how did you know that? Like, this is all true. And like, yeah.
Even to this day, because I've always said, oh, I'm not psychic, but actually now I'm stepping, obviously that was a few years ago now, so now I'm stepping much more into my gifts. I'm like,
the Claires are all like ding 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 ding
a little bit. But yeah, it's just beautiful, you know, to give people their life back, because that's what this is, you know. And I'm not saying to people anything that they don't already know. I'm just helping them come back online and remember it.
Yeah,
that's literally all I do. Is I'm just holding a space for this person, and I may get some amazing downloads for them, and helping them step up and into what they've forgotten. They've switched it out of their brain for whatever reason. And you know, most of us come out the womb and we completely forget the mission that we got sent here with. You know, so it's been amazing. Some people get freaked out. You know, they're like, how? Why would you know this about me? And, you know, some people are also, for want of better words, delusional, and they say, nope, I've never had any emotional trauma. And then I dig a little bit deeper and we unlock all this stuff, and they're like, oh my God. And instantly they feel better.
And that's so interesting, because our perception of emotional trauma, and two things there, right? Like, we can be directly impacted by a trauma, or we can be that there can be a perception which can also live in our body, right? So we can be directly involved, or we can take something on. And then also we talk about like the narrative and the conditioning and the cultural, like the constructs are that, especially as Brits, right? It's that typical like keep calm and carry on, we don't, you know, show emotion. And that seriously fucks me off so much.
I'm with you. I'm like, oh gosh, just let us be.
Yeah. I'm like the polar opposite, actually. Like I'm like how it is in the UK, but Dutchies don't do really emotions all that much. And I know when I like first met Herman's family, I was like, oh, here they're gonna love me. The emotion. And like, you know, talking about emotions. But this is the point that I'm getting to, is that we can be programmed, right, to disbelieve and dishonor and disconnect from those emotions and what might be deemed as trauma. And it's also like there's that didn't affect me because I can just put up that hard wall.
I've forgotten about it. I've forgotten about that.
Just let that go.
You might have done, my darling, but your cells haven't.
No. So from that respect, like, it's like, that's huge, because, and I love that because it lives in our cells.
Yeah. It's a cellular level. And this is where a lot of people will say to me, but how do you even know that? And I'm like I work on the quantum. Okay, that's how I work. I'm not really much on this planet, believe it or not. I'm sure you're really shocked by that, Nicola.
Yeah.
But I work with the quantum, so I can get like into people's cells just by talking to them.
I'm like, what do my cells telling you? What do I need to work on? Tell me. You're there going, this is the thing. I'm like, oh God, she's going to be there going, Nicola, you think you're over that? Come on.
What are you doing, my love? But I can literally get their cells vibrating properly, literally off the back of one conversation. And, you know, the amount of us that are walking around as if we've not got a problem in the world, when actually our cellular level DNA is telling us something totally different. And by being tough and, you know, having this stiff upper lip, it's not serving you. Actually, it's doing a disservice to you. And that's when it shows up in things like cancer and, you know, bowel issues and literally anything dis-ease in your body is relating to some sort of emotional trauma. Now this has just come through to me, so I don't know, somebody needs to hear this.
I'm like, oh God, is it me?
A lot of people give it the whole, oh, they're psychologist or psychiatrist or whatever. Oh God, nothing happened to me in my childhood. Oh gosh, why would you take me back to my childhood? Fundamental truth of the matter is your emotional trauma is normally between 0 and 10.
Yeah.
Normally, I'm not saying it has to be, but normally it is between 0 and 10. And it could be something as literally high level as your mum saying, oh babe, that B is so amazing, but imagine if you'd applied yourself a little bit more, you could have got an A. Now, to most normal human beings out there, we'd be like, yeah, whatever. But to somebody who's sensitive, and maybe it's one of their first lifetimes on this planet, they would take that extremely personally. Oh my God, I need to work harder. Oh my God, I'm not perfect. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Boom goes the emotional trauma. So it doesn't need to be that you're physically abused or sexually abused or something really significant like that. It can be literally a throwaway comment.
Yeah.
That the other person probably doesn't even remember saying to you. And that's the level that we need to get to with everybody for us to be able to even step out of the current situation that we're living in at the moment, Nicola. Because the issue that we've got is most people are doing as they are told, because what if I get told off? Like they've probably been sent to the headmaster's office before, or maybe their mum and dad told them off or smacked them with a wooden spoon or whatever back in the day, you know? Who knows what went on? So people would rather conform than say, not on my watch. And this, honestly, Nicola, at the time when I was going through my awakening journey, which was obviously back in 2014, like I was reawakening, this was scary to be going through. People thought I was literally crazy. My boss thought I was having a mental breakdown. My mum said to me, you just need to take some time, like literally, you know, I'm worried about your mental state. Everybody, like people are going through now because they're talking about conspiracies or what they deem to be conspiracies. Like back then, none of this noise was going on, but I was on this mad awakening journey and people literally thought I was off my head.
And how did you deal with that? Because I think this is like, you know, we touched upon that. We were trying to talk, which we're going to talk about the divine feminine and the rise of the divine feminine. But how do you kind of like move through that when you know that you're not nuts? you know you're not nuts, but you know you're like, this is the truth and I feel this in every cell of my body. That how do you deal with that? Because it's like you say, your boss, your mum, like friends and family probably like you're chicken jowl crazy. And you're like, no, actually I'm like more sane than I've ever been, because I'm you know, and
convince someone of that, they think you're even more crazy.
But like, what did you do? Like, how did you, were you just like unapologetically just yourself?
So I feel and I don't remember everything like exactly as it was, but now looking back and asking that question, I can tap back into my energy back then quite easily. So I remembered when I was going through this, and I'll be honest, I had best friends telling me I was crazy and I wasn't fun anymore, and oh God, we won't invite her out kind of thing, because I was on this mad awakening journey. But what I did is I actually went back to when I was 10 and when I changed, and I thought to myself, right, did that serve me? And I knew I was going back home. I knew I was going back to that feeling that I had when I like pre 10 years of age. I knew I was. You know, it was almost like, just to let people know, and a lot of people are probably going through it right now, it was almost like somebody had just like taken the cobwebs away. You know, like looking out of a really old house and there was cobwebs all in the windows, and all of a sudden you've got a level of clarity that you've never had before. And I think that's what it was that kept me going. And I fell out with my mum. I didn't fall out with my dad because I wasn't speaking to him at that point, but I fell out with my older sister. I fell out with everybody, not in a nasty way, but just kind of like I'm giving them a wide berth for a bit. And I went really, really insular. You know, even my boyfriend at the time was like, I don't know what the hell has happened to you. Like, can I have my girlfriend back, please? And I just knew I was birthing into this whole new human being. Something that the world, you know, I knew the world was ready for it, because otherwise I wouldn't have been given it at that point. But I was stepping up into this like a bud was just blooming, you know, and I'll be honest, it took me probably about a year of me hiding away and being completely separate from the ones that I love to be able to come back in and actually stand in my truth with them, you know, when they were being critical or when they were putting me down or whatever, you know. And I know that people don't have a year to kind of like send themselves, well, if people have used the last 12 months sensibly, they would have had that year to be able to do that, to figure out who they are. But the truth of the matter is, now, I mean, I talk about, you know, because you follow me on social media, but I talk about some really far out there topics because I get them downloaded on me and I want to speak my truth to raise the consciousness on the subjects. Doesn't mean I'm right, but I just want to raise the consciousness on the subjects. And that's how I deal with this now. I literally just say, listen, we don't have to agree on this, but just know I love you no matter what. This is my perspective. That's your perspective. Great. We both know where each other stands. Because a lot of people are using it as an excuse to fall out. You know, they're using it as an excuse to break up relationships and stuff, when actually they were too scared to say, babe, I don't think this is working out. You know, and that's the conversation I had to have with my ex-partner. You know, I'd been on my awakening journey since 2014, and it got to the early first quarter of 2017, and I said to him, babe, I'm quitting my job. I'm going traveling. I have a mission on this planet. I don't know what it is right now, but I know I've got a mission on this planet and I can't ignore it anymore. And he thought I was cheating on him. He thought, you know, all of the typical routes that we would go down of a human. He was like, I can't believe you've cheated on me. I can't believe this. I can't believe that. But the fundamental truth of the matter is I had been blooming for 3 years and I'd gone on this journey where I was really learning to stand up in my truth, which is bloody scary. To stand up and speak your truth in the world that we live in right now, it's bloody scary. But I'd been practicing it for 3 years, slowly, and I'd been loving more and more over those 3 years. And I just, like, he wanted me to settle down, buy a new house and have babies. And I was like, I can't do this to you. I can't do this to you because it's not what I want. And that conversation was a difficult conversation to have. And, you know, my whole world fell apart at that point. Literally, I loved this guy and I genuinely thought we'd be together forever, but he was going in this direction and I was going in this direction, and I didn't know what to do. And I sat on it for about 6 months. I wasn't speaking to him about how I was feeling, because I was like, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I'm delusional? And I did start to think I was going crazy. Because you do start to question yourself. Well, what if I'm making all this up? And what's so fascinating, and, you know, I'm sending him so much love, is now he gets me more than he's ever got me.
So interesting.
And he says to me, why couldn't you have been like this when we were together? All right.
So interesting.
Beautiful, right?
Yeah.
So huge evolution. And what have I done? I've given him permission to stand up in his truth. You know, I remember when I told my mum that I'd started something called Self-Love Club, she went to me, oh my gosh, that's so selfish. And I was like, thank you for sharing how you feel about yourself. And now when I speak to her, she's like, oh, do you know what? I took myself off for a nice walk and I went for a coffee and I've had my nails done and I've done this and I've done that. And I'm like, oh, and there's me thinking self-love was selfish, Mum. And she's like, oh, you behave yourself. But like, without even having to have those conversations, I'm very cheeky with my mum, just so you know. You know,
Same.
All we need to do is walk our talk. We don't need to literally use the words. We just show people what we're doing and then we allow them to elevate. And long story short, that's basically how I got through the mass awakening that I've been on in the last like 6 years.
Yeah. So let's take us back to the first thing that you birthed in the world after traveling and healing back in 2014 or so. Yeah.
Okay, so obviously the first thing I did was step into my healing journey and step into this nutritionist kind of thing that I did for a short period of time. But after that, I was very, very empowered to recognize that I was living in a female body. You know, and I'm going to call it, because there's probably a lot of ladies that will listen to this. Certainly, if I share this on my YouTube channel, there'll be a lot of resonance there with that. Like, I recognized I was living in a female body and I wasn't utilizing my divine feminine energy, not in the slightest. I was very in my masculine. you know, and more importantly, I was in toxic masculine, because the divine masculine energy is freaking beautiful. When men stand up in their truth and they are truly divine masculine, they are supportive, they are, you know, it's strong, like, you know, there is none of this toxicity or playing games or anything. And, you know, we must remember that the world that we live in, and we have been living in for such a long time, is toxic masculine energy. You've got to pay taxes, you've got to go to work, you've got to work harder, you know, you're not good enough, compare yourself, you've got to win the competition, like you can't come in second is really bad, you've got to win. And that's the life that we have been born into, and the life that we've been indoctrinated into. And I started like unpicking all of this, because I had more time on my hands, because I was, you know, working with clients, and I was very, very firm. The 2 years that I got back after my traveling, I was very firm with my job. I went in at 7:30 in the morning, but I was out the door by 5:30. And normally on the trading floor, you're there till 11, 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, you know. So I was very, very firm with them, and I used to go running every lunchtime. I set my standards.
Yeah.
But it allowed me to figure out, right, who on earth is Lucy Davis? Who is she supposed to be? What on earth, you know, is this going to look like going forwards? And that's when I started to birth the divine feminine. Now, most people would be like, oh, divine feminine, like we don't even know what that is. And a lot of people don't, because the divine feminine has kind of been shunned for many, many years, 26,000 years, to be honest. It's been shunned. You know, we took away, you know, the women really standing in their truth by, you know, let's tax them, and, you know, let's, like, you know, take everything that they're supposed to be. And I don't mean that derogatory, ladies, at all, but this nurturing, loving, you know, kind, supportive, all of a sudden we needed to be the men.
Yeah.
You know, so, and it was very interesting, because I worked in such a masculine environment, I fought professional Muay Thai.
Yeah.
Literally, I fought, there is not any, other than MMA, there isn't any more, you know, masculine sport that you can do than elbowing somebody in the face.
Yeah.
Like,
when you put it like that, Luce.
You know, I'm very lucky I never got an elbow. Actually on my cheek once, but she didn't cut me, so I was like, thank Lord. But, you know, there is nothing more tough and more firm than that. And here I was, a female, doing all of these things. So I really had to step into, what is my role here supposed to be? And I trusted the fact that I got taken off around the world. I trusted the fact that I stepped into training Muay Thai when I was in Thailand. I trusted the fact that I'd gone through and I'd learned all of these things, and I'd learned all these different healing modalities. And I was like, right, okay, stop the clock. You know, I know this means something, I just don't know what it is. So to your point earlier about, you know, knowing what it was a gradual thing. It was an evolution, and it's still evolving today.
Yeah.
Am I going to be a spiritual mentor to thousands in a year's time? I don't know, quite frankly.
No.
I don't know. Literally, I don't know, because if I get my way, which is, you know, the stuff that I'm working on at the moment, we will have millions, billions of us, divine feminine and divine masculine. So you won't need me here to remind you, because you would have remembered.
Yeah. That will be the new normal.
Yeah, and this is what New Earth is going to look like. We've got a few more years of noise yet, but this is what New Earth is going to look like. And, you know, I want to be honest with you. I had a phantom pregnancy. Can't remember what it was. I'm going to say within the last 6 months. It might be a little bit longer, but everyone will remember. I got these massive boobs. Actually, I reckon it's nearly a year ago, probably about September last year. All of a sudden, my boobs started growing massive. All of a sudden, I just had this really voluptuous figure, and I'm tiny. You know, I'm little. I'm 59 kilos, 5'4". Just I'm little.
Yeah.
And I had these massive boobs come up, and I started to get a little belly. Now, I hadn't eaten anything different. I wasn't doing anything different at all. I was still training. I was running. You know, Nicola, I run every day. And I spoke to one of my spiritual mentors, and I said to her, I feel like I'm birthing New Earth. And she went, that's because you are, darling. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, literally, I had these boobs. Honestly, I'll send you a picture privately.
Yeah.
Literally, I took a picture, like, where the hell have these come from? All of my girlfriends were wetting themselves. They're like, Lucy's got
motorboat. So
people,
right?
Yeah, but this is the connection. This is the connection, and it's open to everybody. Like, I'm no better than you, you're no better than me, we're all on this mission together, and it's about finding that person that can help you ignite whatever it is. Might be through a podcast, might be through a book, might be through watching somebody's videos, like, and this is the beautiful thing about it. Like, every single person has the potential to do this. Don't freak out, ladies, not all of you will birth the new earth, don't worry about that. But like I say, it was about September last year, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing it, I've been picked for this.
Yeah.
And this is why I am so focused on the divine feminine.
Yeah.
Because the only thing that's going to save this planet, as we know it, is bringing the divine feminine back, like the true divine feminine back.
Yeah. And how does one go about that? Like, you just said, maybe it's like finding mentors or guides, maybe it's listening to something that ignites you, like, but how, it's tricky, right? When we are surrounded by potentially like naysayers or those that might think are a bit cuckoo. I'm totally down with like being called crazy. My mum's always said to me, my sister, you two live on another planet. And I'm like, yep.
Well, maybe you do, mum.
Yeah. But when you're like, I know that in my world, like Herman and I, my partner, we have very different views. But we talk about them, and I'm like, and what you said earlier, if I look back at our relationship, and Herman, I've always said this about him, he is I'm always like, God, he's so connected, even though he doesn't want a bar of anything that I say, and he says he's very science driven and blah blah blah, but he's so got this beautiful mix of the feminine and masculine, and we hear that and we think, we don't want to kind of like people to think like male, female, like we all have this energy in us. And he has this beautiful ability about him already, but we are very different. And when I look at our kind of like time together, I'm like, oh my God, I used to be like the pusher. I used to be like, you need to do this, I'm doing this, you need to meditate, you need to do this. And I remember then like stopping that and just kind of like leading by example, right? Doing the thing. And then you start to see the shifts and the changes. And I love that. And I love how, we always have conversations how we're different. I have my things, he has his, but I can see how that complements and what have you. But how can one go about really trying to embrace and step into and invite in more of the divine feminine when they may be surrounded by those who are very closed-eyed, shall we say?
So the first thing I would suggest is just figuring out your truth. Now, your partner might think that you love pink and you despise pink. Do you get what I mean? Something as basic as that. We need to figure out who we are first and foremost. And then what we need to do, once we know our truth, we then realize where we haven't set our standards or we haven't set our boundaries. So, I used to be like, yeah, I love going out drinking, I love going partying all night, blah, 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 blah. And the reality is I actually didn't. I just wanted to be around the people. It wasn't about the drinking. It wasn't about the partying. I just loved being around people. So now I'm really truthful about that. I love being around people. And every now and again, I'll have a few drinks, but it's not my be all and end all. I will happily go out when we're allowed here.
Yeah.
And I will drive or I will go and I just won't drink. And I'm really okay with that. And that might sound like a really ridiculous thing, but it's actually something, we all need to get started on actually who we really are, because how do other people know who we are if we don't actually show them?
Totally.
So first and foremost, figure out who you are. First and foremost, figure out what you like and what you don't like, and then be really, really, really real with yourself and ask yourself, what do I have common threads that come up? So for example, say you're in a relationship with somebody and your partner every day gets home from work, he kicks off his shoe, mud goes everywhere, and you're like, fuck's sake! Every single day it's the same thing. What is it about him kicking off his shoes and mud going everywhere that you are having a reaction to? Because when you can establish why you're having that reaction, you can go and do the healing work on it. And honestly, ladies and gents, we all have these patterns. Yeah. Something as ridiculous as kicking the shoes off and mud going, what about sitting down and having a conversation with them about that? you know, silly little things like that. Because once you are identifying, and it probably is, your dad used to come in off the farm and kick off his boots, and your mum used to be like, for God's sake, Tony, you know, that kind of thing. So now it irritates you, but it's not your irritation. It's not your stuff to take through. And the only way that you guys can get to know that is literally, and I get my members to do this actually, carry a notepad around them and notice everything that's annoying you on a day-to-day basis. Maybe you're in the car. Oh, come on, speed up. Why are you driving so slow? That's an irritation. Write it down. Where does your impatience come from? You know, if you can literally start to notice that, you will actually be able to go back and look at all of the work that you need to do on your ego. Some people call it ego, some people call it shadow, to befriend it.
Yeah.
Once we can heal that, that's when we can really start to step up and step into the divine feminine. And I'm talking for men as well here. I only know a couple of men that embody divine feminine perfectly. My stepdad is a really great example. He's a strong, masculine, you know, steadfast, reliable man, and he's a real boy's boy, but he's the most gentle, kind, considerate person you would ever meet. You know, until you put him in a car.
Road rage kicks in.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is because we're girls, we're like, oh yeah, we're feminine, but we're not. We're carrying this toxic masculine energy because we need to be seen, we need to be heard, we need to control. All of these things are toxic masculine energy. If you need to know where your partner is going always, or maybe that's a bad example, but if you need to know like what time they're going to be home and then that's toxic masculine. It's control.
Yeah. And control is such a huge one for so many people, right? And it's like it has many kind of faces, or like masks / hats, you know, like it's that kind of, it can look, it totally
literally has so many different faces. We don't know which one it's going to have on that particular
absolutely day. That's something I think that is very that's something for me personally that I know that I work through. And I remember being like, fuck, I was getting pissed off about the control. I'm in a blended family, ex-partners and what have you. And I was like, it was kind of like this fucking cock off of control. And I'm like, oh, and I've always just done what I wanted to do. And then I've done a lot of deep work and healing myself. And I'm like, what is it? Where does this come from? And then I think about my mum. My mum was a single mum for a good few years before she was with Jim, but she kind of was like, she would control every situation, you know, like she had to kind of like get things done. And it was like, you know, and you think, oh, this is so interesting. It's not even about me in this situation. I have been a witness and being part of my mum's controlling of things. And I, you know, like even like now, like I see it with her and I'm like, oh my, you know, we have a very, probably like you and your mum, you could call it out in our relationship, but you're like, oh, and it kept on kind of coming up and I'm like, but this doesn't feel like it's mine. And when you, like you say, awareness is 95% of it, right? When you become aware and you call it, and then you see the shadow, that's where the fucking beauty is. And I think that there's a narrative that, oh, it's all love and lie. It's not all fucking love and lie.
Delusion.
Yeah, because actually where the shadow is where the breakthroughs are as well. And also that's a part of you, like that's to be embraced. And you know, I often have this picture in my head that there are those going love and light that are, when offline or in their own house, are in a bundle, in a mess, because they just don't know how to deal with the darkness that comes up.
Exactly. What you just said about your mum's really quite interesting actually, and I think I just want to make this point so that people really get it into their cells how important this is. What you were talking about then is what I refer to as mirroring. So you've been witness to something and now you're projecting it forwards. Yeah. And I actually feel that probably 95% of the population, probably even 99% of the population behave like this. And we must acknowledge it, because exactly as you said, it's not our stuff. And it's down to us to say, I choose that to love my mum, but I choose not to behave like my mum. You know, and I get it completely. When my mum and dad split up, my mum had to step into her masculine. She needed to get shit done. She needed to get us to school. She needed to do this. Like, you know, and you admire people for doing that, but then it's difficult to relinquish that. You know, so we must just have a level of consciousness, and that's why I mentioned a couple of exercises that I did. It will increase your consciousness on this.
Yeah.
It's not about whether you're right or wrong or how fucked up you are or anything like that. It's not about that. It's literally just raise the consciousness so you then know what you are working with. And then you might find a book that can help you. You might find a person that can help you. You might find a mentor. You might find a course. There are so many different modalities out there. It might be that you don't even need anybody because you're like, oh my God, I've got the consciousness now. I know that I need to do something about it. And every time you do it, you go, oh, I've caught myself. And then you just, you know, you can step through it very easily. I don't know what's going to work for each and every person individually. You've got to try these things out. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
That's what I had to do, is because I had no mentors. I didn't really know where to look for a mentor. Although I was on Facebook back then, I wasn't really, I couldn't really find any like spiritual mentors that I thought, you know, it was more like, you know, the Tony Robbins that were showing up in my life and people like that who were massive out there in the public domain, but they're not who I wanted to be around.
No.
You know, and it was very much more business related than personal related. So I did all these breakthroughs on my own. And actually a lady that I do a lot of work with the divine feminine with now, she's like, I have got no clue how you did. I don't know how you've got where you've got on your own. Literally, I don't know how you've done it, but it's because I remember. I've been here before. I remember the mission that I got sent to now. I didn't remember it at 35 years of age when I was burning out, and I felt such a victim. Oh, poor me, I'm going to lose my salary. Poor me, I'm giving up this. Poor me. But now I'm like, okay, bring it on. Bring it on. I remember the mission. I know I'm here to help this world go into new earth. Like, I just know. I know I'm here to, you know, help the healing by the rise of the divine feminine. Why do you think they gave me the gift of me healing tumors?
Yeah.
Why? They nearly killed me. And within 6 weeks of them nearly killing me, I was absolutely free of them. Now, that was a gift that I truly believe that was a miracle. That was a gift from God to say, you now have the responsibility to go and show everybody else that it can be done.
That it's possible.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because I'm sure you know the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and you know when he does his week-long retreats, or what you call them that?
One of my girlfriends, literally over the last 2 weeks, she's calling me up every day. Come to the one in Cancun. Come to the one in Cancun. So you mentioned that. I'm like, okay, another sign. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, he's actually was meant to be in London last November, but with COVID again, I think it got moved. I was like, oh my God, like I'd love to go. But it's so interesting because, you know, there are, and I say story because they are real. There are example stories, whatever word you want to put there, of people healing themselves. You know, like having the power from within to heal. You look at emotions as energy emotion, right? Like you just kind of, it's so it's just so prevalent that we, and it's so strong that we can actually do this, but we have been so taken away from that reality. And when you see that the work of Dr. Joe, you see people standing up there. I remember showing Herman a Dutch couple because he was like, oh yeah, whatever, and I was like, okay, I'll show him Dutchies. And he was like, yeah, and he was like, oh my God, like, you know. I said, yeah, it's not of your own. Do you believe me now? It's not just me and my woo mates. But I remember him being like, oh wow, like, yeah. And I was like, this is science, hun. Like, you know, you're like, this isn't, I only believe in science. This is, but we can do this ourselves. And I wanted to ask you, because there is sometimes the belief that from a healing perspective, and from doing the work, that you have to like do a fucking long stretch and like do like multiple sessions and all of the things. In your experience, have you seen people like shift and heal quite rapidly?
Yeah, absolutely, myself included in that. You know, it took me 6 weeks, and when I say it took me 6 weeks, like literally I was in hospital. I got a phone call on a Friday night from my doctor, one of the partners of the doctor's surgery that I was at, and he said to me, Lucy, you've got two choices. You either get yourself to the hospital now, or we're going to blue light you. And I was like, what's happened? And he said that my oxygen in my body was less than 40%. Because I was hemorrhaging. I'd been hemorrhaging for a week. Nobody took me seriously at first. And then all of a sudden they ran, this doctor that I went to see, I pulled on her heartstrings a little bit. She ran another set of tests on me, and I was literally so depleted that they were worried my organs were going to start shutting down. Like, I was that seriously poorly. And I said to my dad, I was like, do I have to go? And he was like, Lucy, I think you should go. So I went to the hospital, and literally when I got there, the energy and the strength that it took me to get there, only sitting in a car, getting there and then getting out of the car to go in, literally I almost collapsed as I walked in.
And questioning if you should go before that.
I know. And they put me on a bed, and literally within, I don't know, half an hour, I was in a private ward, being prepped for a multiple blood transfusion. Like, it was instant. They were like giving me all of this stuff. They were checking, like I was linked up to everything, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is absolutely ridiculous. You know, so I had to go through a multiple blood transfusion, and it was when I was having, I think it was it was the first bag of blood that was going in, and I'd never had a blood transfusion before, so I really didn't want it. Like, I literally had heard so many horror stories, and I was always like, I'm not taking anyone else's blood. But I literally sat there connecting with this blood the whole time, like energizing it, putting the most high vibe blood into me. And I called in angels and my guides and stuff, and I was like, I've just found out my purpose here. What are you doing? Like, what is this about? And I had a choice. I could either continue going the way that I was going, and there was a tiny bit of emotional trauma that I hadn't dealt with previously, because I'd been 3 years of not having anything wrong with my body, literally nothing. And then all of a sudden this problem kicked in, and it just hit me so hard. And I found the last little bit of emotional trauma whilst I was in there having that blood transfusion. But then I literally, 2 days later, I discharged myself the next day from hospital. The day after that, I got on a plane and I went to Australia. Literally, I went to Sydney. And what I did for 6 weeks, I think I was in Sydney for 4 weeks, and then I was in Sydney for 3 weeks, and then I flew to Brazil, spent 3 weeks there. As you do when you're dying, right? I'm not recommending this to people at home, by the way, I'm just telling you what I did. And no word of a lie, I took myself offline. I went inwards. I was journaling everything that I was feeling, any emotions that came up, like anything at all. I took myself, and I was diving in like freshwater lakes and stuff, which I shouldn't have been, because there's lots of nasties in Australia. But I was like, do you know what? You know, I need to get my body back in alignment. And I spent time in nature. I fasted. You name it, Nick. I did everything that I had learned from meeting all of these healers over the years. And I was like, right, I'm doing it. This is life or death. You know, they put me on medication so that I could leave the hospital. I was off of that medication within 5 days of touching down in Sydney. 5 days. And there was nothing there to stop the bleeding that had happened. That's why they put me on the medication. They pumped me back up with blood, but they needed to kind of like close off the blood so that it would see my body.
Sort of thing, yeah.
5 days is all it took me to get off of the meds, and I wasn't bleeding at all. So, but I went deep, and I didn't freaking stop. I literally was surrounded by crystal, you name it, it was all going on. And then, so 6 weeks is not a long time, in my opinion. And it wasn't like I was having coaching from anybody. I was literally focusing on myself, doing the do, eating everything that I should be, you know, avoiding things that I shouldn't be. If people were pissing me off or stressing me out, that would be it. I just wouldn't be around them. You know, things like that. I literally made
so discerning about everything.
6 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember when I was in Brazil, actually passing them. I remember passing them. I went to the toilet, and I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to, you know, bleed or something. And it had been a few weeks since I had, and I just literally, these things just plopped out of me, and I was like, oh my, now I wish I'd scooped them out the toilet and like taken photos and stuff. Now
that'd be great on your Instagram.
At the time I was like, what? That's disgusting.
Yeah.
Disgusting. And then literally my periods just went back to normal. And I've never, touch wood, never
Yeah.
had a problem since. And that was in 2018.
Yeah.
And I healed myself. I went for a scan when I got home, and they scanned me internally because they wanted to remove my womb, like it was that serious. They scanned me internally and everything had gone, and they were like, "You're a miracle." And I was like, "Nah, you ain't going to convince me of that. I'm not a miracle. You know, I'm just here to remind people how to self-heal." And as you know, I've made it my mission ever since. And a massive part of the divine feminine energy, healing.
Yeah.
And we can all do it.
And that self-administered, like that ability to self-heal, that connection with plants and nature, and it's all available to us.
And it's a non-negotiable. You know, I know we were chatting earlier about, you know, how do I look after myself? Like, it's just a non-negotiable. It's a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
I am out every single morning without fail, rain, shine, whatever. I'm out in nature for at least an hour, because I know my body is absolutely dependent on that fresh air, that oxygen, that vibrancy. Like, all my little ducks come and talk to me and stuff. Why? Because I'm high vibe, and then they can feel the vibe.
Yeah.
So everybody can get out of their house.
Yeah. And this is what I wanted to say, because, you know, often we hear, "Oh, but I can't, I've got this." Everything is a fucking choice.
Yeah, exactly.
We have the ability to choose.
Exactly.
We can choose the other, fine, then fucking own it. And I say fucking because it really just gets on me. And because I know I have done the fucking choices that have effed me over. And, you know, we're human having a human experience, like, such is life. But you have a choice. Just like every day, regardless whether you have no kids, 1 kid, 20 kids. If you've got 20 kids, or maybe a little bit, you know. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, if you've got 20 kids, how do you do it? But the choices are there. And I remember having a conversation with my sister about something, and I always use this example. She's like, "Oh, I can't do that." And I was like, "But you'll choose to go to the pub and buy a bottle of Prosecco for 20-something quid. It was around something." And I was like, "Which is fine. Just fucking own your choices. Own your own data, like, own your choices." But we all have these things available. And I want to kind of really emphasize that, because someone may be listening and think, "Oh, that's fine for Lucy, or that's fine for Nick." And they have that. Like, you know, we moved and I've got the forest there on the doorstep. Yeah, but I choose to get off my ass and go out there.
Exactly. The only limitation is when people don't have the money, right? And I can get that, but everything I did to heal wasn't about money.
No.
And the only reason I went to Sydney, I'll be honest with you, is because I had a flight ticket booked. I was going anyway. And I knew if I could get as far away from the people that wanted to take my womb away, that, you know, because I was supposed to be running a seminar over there, but I just cancelled the seminar. I still went, and I just did everything for me. And I made it all about, you know, getting out in nature. You know, just everything was free. Getting out in the sunshine, getting out in the fresh air, grounding. Like, it was a non-negotiable for me. I used to walk around everywhere, even walking down the streets barefoot, because it's grounding. It's bringing you back into Mother Nature, bringing you back into your sovereignty. I would meditate. I meditated for hours. When I was in Brazil, I was there for 3 weeks, and I probably meditated 7 whole days out of the 3 weeks. Like, 1 whole week, I was in silent meditation on my own, like, no connection, no nothing, you know, because it was my life. And this is the thing, Nick, if just 1% of the planet valued themselves as much as I value myself, trust me, that 1% of the population would be a catalyst for everybody on the planet. But they don't. Oh, it's only 1 glass of wine. Oh, it's only my toxic relationship. Oh, yeah, but we've been together 5 years. Oh, yeah, just because you've made a long time making a mistake does not mean that you should continue to do it. You've got to love yourself so much that you know what is right for you. You know, and own if you're the toxic person. It's okay. Like, we've all been toxic. Yeah. Own it, because that's the only way that you're going to heal it. Like, I cannot say to you, and I say this to my members, and funnily enough, my program's just about to start again in less than a couple of weeks. And the first thing I say to them is, I have to believe that you are going to be more honest now than you've ever been in your life. because there's no point you being here and there's no point you spending the money unless you are prepared to be honest with yourself. And this is the fundamental truth. As human beings, we have been indoctrinated to lie, to fabricate, to bluff. And actually, the thing that is going to get us where we need to be, especially going into New Earth, in New Earth, we're all going to be telepathic. We're going to know, oh, that person's lying to me. So why not start practicing it now and start with yourself? If you don't like something, tell somebody, babe, do you know what? I know it's really beautiful that you do that for me, but I actually don't like it. You know, if you did it like this, I'd like that even more, or something like that. Like, have the honest conversations. It's the only way we're all going to heal is by being super truthful, super honest.
And super truthful, super honest, and that being okay. You don't have to be dishonest and save somebody. You're actually like hurting them more if you're not, and you're hurting yourself.
Exactly. And that's the thing. You're not just hurting yourself, oh, that hurts, oh, you know, I'm going to have a little reaction over nothing in 2 weeks' time. No, your cells are hurting. Your cells are holding on to that hurt. Your cells are hurting on to that little fib that you told that is nothing or something that you've got over. Your cells are holding on to that, and you do not get rid of it until you go back and you say, actually, do you know what? That lie that I told there really, really, really made me feel guilty. It made me feel shameful. It made me feel embarrassed. And then we can start to do the work to release it.
So good.
Not a bad thing to birth, babe, is it?
No. And just to wrap up, because I'm conscious of time, but your self-love club, which is your membership, and you birthed it how long ago? Did you actually birth it?
Well, I channeled it as I was healing. So as I was going through the healing journey, it's basically my whole program is all about healing and how you can step into your purpose and awaken to your spiritual gifts and all the rest of it. So basically everything that I did intuitively, I've just put into a program. And what I do, I've got a number of different things. I do Self-Love Club Hangs, which is just a 2-hour seminar, and people can come along to that and have huge breakthroughs in 2 hours, like literally, because I just jump straight in, get into your cells, remove your emotional trauma, and it's quite an emotional evening, but we have huge results off of that. So that's the Self-Love Club Hangs, because we just kind of hang out for a couple of hours, but it's not rose petals and unicorns.
Rainbows.
And then I've obviously got my membership program, which is, a year's program at the moment. I am going to be making it shorter in coming years. But basically, I only take members in for 3 days over the course of a year. And it opens on the 1st of June. And then it's my year program. So the next time I'll take members will be June 2022. Yeah. And it's basically a monthly subscription or a yearly annual payment. And basically, we go on such a huge ascension journey and look at every single area of your life, your past. We dredge it all up. I very quickly dredge it all up, and then we start putting you back together, for want of better words, but just so the human brain can comprehend. And I encourage you into your purpose, your passions, your values, your standards. And then I just don't even recognize any of my members that are just finishing up. Literally, I got messages from them all yesterday in the group, because we've only got two more calls left. That's it for the year. And they're all like, oh my God, I can't believe how different I am. This is amazing. It's just unbelievable, the breakthroughs that we've had and the changes that we've had. It's a year sounds like a long time. And I never anticipated it being a year. Of course, I'll be honest with you, but my gosh, it's unbelievable what people have gone through, so.
And what we were talking about earlier, right? Like, how do you find out your truth? It's like through that is how you can, right?
Yeah. And also, because I look at the body, like the physical body and all sorts of different areas, everything that I found, I needed to ascend on to get me where I've got, it's not just a level of truth with your beliefs, or maybe whether you are pro-Trump or against Trump kind of rubbish. It's like deep level cellular. How does your body feel when you do this? How does your body feel when you do that? How does your mind feel? Like, what does your ego say? How does your shadow show up? Like, it literally, we go deep.
We go deep. I love that. I'll pop all the links in for everyone so that they can see that. And kind of, I assume that on the website will say like what the membership consists of and all of that. And so, if anyone's listening and thinks, I want to find out more about who the fuck I am. Let's go there with this one. Remember, it's not going to be all rainbows and butterflies and unicorns.
No, definitely.
But therein lies the beauty, right? And I think this is the underlying kind of message, that when we dig deep, we actually become even more of who we are. I have this real fucking, I hate that saying, be your best self. I'm like, be your truest self, like just be who you are. And I think that's, you know, what you're doing in the work in the world is doing so that.
Sexy. You know, authenticity is the most sexy thing on the planet, but very few people are comfortable to be truly authentic. Like they might be 80% authentic, but then 20%, you know, they're not. And it's about us all stepping into our 100% authentic self.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. We'll end it on that. Beautiful.
Love you.
Thank you so much. You are an angel, and I'm so grateful, and thank you for everything that you're doing in the world. And yeah.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for listening, everybody.